Imagine you are walking down a perfectly paved path in a quiet, modern park. The sun is shining brightly, and the air is perfectly safe. Suddenly, a small, incredibly fluffy creature bounds across the grass toward you. Your brain instantly fires off a rapid sequence of electrical signals directly to your hands. You feel an immediate, almost overwhelming urge to crouch down and touch it. Why is your very first instinct to reach out and pet an animal? This reaction feels completely normal and entirely harmless to you today. You live in a meticulously constructed world of concrete, soft beds, and locked doors. You buy your food wrapped in plastic, and you control the temperature of your environment with a button. But you must understand that your brain was absolutely not built for this comfortable modern world. Your brain is an ancient piece of hardware built to survive in a brutal, freezing, and unforgiving wilderness. What happens when you look closely at the hidden coding of this ancient survival machine? Think back to your distant ancestors sitting around a flickering fire 40,000 years ago. The vast darkness existing just outside that small ring of firelight was filled with living nightmares. Massive, silent predators, with teeth as long as your forearm, were constantly waiting in the shadows. Every single snapped twig or rustling leaf held the very real promise of a violent and sudden death. Why on earth would anyone living in that terrifying environment ever want to reach out and touch a wild, unpredictable beast? The answer to this mystery lies in a strange, incredibly powerful glitch buried deep within your nervous system. You are biologically wired, down to your very DNA, to recognize and respond to the specific facial features of human infants. Large, round eyes, set wide apart on a face with a disproportionately large forehead, trigger an immediate chemical reaction. This visual pattern acts like a master key, unlocking a flood of a powerful chemical directly into your bloodstream. This chemical is called oxytocin, and it physically forces you to feel deep, nurturing affection. Did you know that this exact same ancient chemical pathway has been completely hijacked by the animal kingdom? Picture a desperate, starving wolf cautiously approaching the edge of that ancient, smoky campfire. It is a dangerous, unpredictable, and completely wild apex predator. But this specific wolf happens to have slightly softer, rounder features than the older, more aggressive members of its pack. Your exhausted ancestor looks at it, feels a strange twinge of empathy, and throws a piece of bone with scrap meat into the dark. How did this simple, seemingly insignificant transaction forever change the course of human history? The starving wolf eats the offered meat and, crucially, decides not to attack the camp that night. The very next evening, the same wolf returns to the edge of the light, waiting quietly for more food. Over dozens of generations, the highly aggressive wolves are hunted down or driven away, while the calm, tolerant ones are continually fed by your ancestors. These calmer wolves begin to undergo radical physical changes, developing smaller teeth, weaker jaws, and curiously floppy ears. Have you ever stopped to wonder why almost all modern dogs look exactly like eternal, overgrown puppies? This phenomenon is called neoteny, the retention of juvenile physical characteristics into adulthood. Your ancient brain looks at these soft, juvenile features on a completely different species and gets wonderfully confused. It releases a massive dose of oxytocin, just as it would if you were holding a human child in your arms. When you reach out your hand and stroke the warm fur of this animal, your internal stress levels drop almost instantly. Your racing heart rate slows down to a calm rhythm, and your elevated blood pressure steadily decreases. Why does the simple physical act of touching an animal feel like such a profound biological relief? Because for your hyper-vigilant ancestors, the ability to safely pet a tame wolf meant that the immediate environment was completely secure. If the wolf is calm enough to be touched and stroked, it means there are absolutely no hidden predators lurking nearby. The physical act of petting slowly evolved into a deeply ingrained biological signal that your tribe was temporarily safe from death. You successfully developed a mutually beneficial feedback loop of chemical pleasure with an entirely different species. Does any other apex predator on the entire planet engage in this kind of behavior? You certainly do not see solitary lions keeping small, injured antelopes as comforting pets. You do not see highly intelligent chimpanzees selectively breeding wild jungle dogs for emotional companionship. This highly specific, seemingly irrational desire to nurture and comfort other species is entirely unique to your evolutionary lineage. It provided you with a massive, unprecedented evolutionary advantage over the harsh and chaotic natural world. How exactly did this soft, vulnerable emotion actually help you conquer the entire planet? Those ancient domesticated wolves quickly became your highly effective early warning systems in the terrifying dark. They could smell approaching danger and hidden enemies long before your primitive, underdeveloped nose could ever detect a scent. They helped you track down faster, more elusive prey during the brutal, starving months of the freezing winters. In exchange for their heightened senses and sharp teeth, you provided them with the warmth of the fire and a steady, reliable supply of food. Can you clearly see how this strange, cross-species partnership was absolutely essential for your continued survival? But your overwhelming evolutionary urge to pet and nurture things did not stop with the domestication of wolves. As the centuries passed and you slowly started to settle down, building farms and storing grain, you inevitably attracted vast swarms of mice. These massive populations of destructive mice subsequently attracted sleek, solitary wildcats directly from the harsh desert environments. Instead of chasing these dangerous, clawed predators away from your settlements, you allowed them to stay and hunt the vermin. Why did you eventually invite these aloof, solitary killers directly into the warmth of your home? The desert wildcats naturally possessed those exact same large, forward-facing eyes and soft, rounded facial features. Your primitive brain easily fell right back into the exact same inescapable oxytocin trap that caught you with the wolves. You began leaving out extra food and providing warm shelter just to keep these fascinating creatures near you. They slowly and methodically domesticated themselves by expertly exploiting your built-in, biological capacity for empathy. When a cat purrs and you feel compelled to stroke its fur, are you actually the master of the house, or are you the one being expertly manipulated? Your biological programming is incredibly powerful, deeply rooted, and entirely blind to modern logic. This ancient survival mechanism does not simply turn off just because you are no longer living in a freezing cave surrounded by danger. This glitch in your nervous system is exactly why you occasionally feel the insane urge to pet wild animals that could easily kill you in seconds. You see a massive, deadly bear tumbling in a video, and your very first irrational thought is that it looks incredibly cuddly and soft. Why does your highly evolved brain completely ignore the massive, bone-crushing claws and choose to focus entirely on the round, fuzzy ears? Because the fundamental blueprint of your mind always prioritizes emotional connection over cold, calculating logic. Your continued survival on this harsh planet once depended entirely on your unique ability to form strong bonds with the terrifying creatures around you. You learned how to carefully read the subtle body language and vocalizations of completely different species. You learned how to willingly share your incredibly scarce resources with something that was not even remotely human. What does this strange, enduring behavioral trait actually say about your vast capacity for empathy? It means that your absolute dominance of this chaotic world was not simply built on the invention of sharp weapons. It was not just built on the mastery of fire, the crafting of stone tools, or the slow development of complex agriculture. Your survival was built entirely on your profound, almost magical ability to form powerful emotional alliances across species lines. You managed to survive the brutal ancient world because you possessed the courage to look directly into the eyes of a monster and see a potential friend. Do you realize just how incredibly beautiful and utterly terrifying that evolutionary truth really is? Every single time you reach down to stroke the head of a sleeping dog or a purring cat today, you are performing a deeply ancient ritual. You are actively continuing a silent chemical dialogue that first began in the freezing, terrifying mud of the Ice Age. You are using your touch to tell the animal that you are safe, and they are using their presence to tell your brain that you are secure. The chaotic, unpredictable wild world outside your walls is successfully held back for just a fleeting, peaceful moment. Imagine you are walking down a quiet modern street, and you simply reach out your hand.